Hi, my name is John Goodhart, and I will be giving a presentation on a company called Arbitech and going over its organizational design, structure, and change. On the agenda today, we will be identifying the organizational dimension that is lacking in the company out of 8 categories. We will go on to explain the ramifications of this category that is underperforming. Then we will analyze the organizational structure, design, and culture and how they influence the organization's effectiveness as a whole. Fourth, we will determine whether the organization embodies the principles of conscious culture, conscious capitalism. Fifth, we will present a plan of improvement based off of Cotter's 8 step change model. Sixth, we will address possible challenges that this company will face during this 8 step model. Seventh, we will explain several subsystems that will need to be realigned in order to make these changes. And lastly, we will detail management styles and strategies that could have been used to avoid this issue, this dimension that was lacking in the first place. First off, let's go over who Arbitech is. Arbitech is, in essence, a sales company that deals with very specialized technology equipment, custom servers, custom computers. They operate like many inside sales companies do, where they get commissions off of profits. So you see a lot of traditional roles and positions that are based around a sales environment. But what's different about this company is it takes on a Google type of setting where there's more modular setups for people interacting at lunch or games in the office place, a little more fluid. But it contradicts the behavior of a more traditional setup. So the 8 performance dimensions that are frequently used to categorize businesses are: one, innovativeness; two, quality of management; three, long-term investment value; four, social responsibility; five, people management; six, quality of products and services; seventh, financial soundness; eighth, wise use of corporate assets. Today we will be going over the most deficient dimension, which is people management for Arbitech. The consequences of mismanaging people, employees in the workspace, is there's frequently high employee turnover. They're not able to keep employees for longer than 6 months or a year, which is normal in a sales environment frequently because of this issue of mismanaging people. Eventually, this causes increased costs on training because you spend all these resources getting somebody up to speed and familiar with the process, the company, and then you have to restart on the next hire. Um, Inherently, this affects the customer in sales because they're constantly dealing with a new person, which can't give as much customer service and cater to their needs, which is one of Arbitech's main strengths and claims to their business model, that they will make custom tech equipment for customers. And all of this is kind of key to a weak culture when there's high turnover, you're constantly training people, and you're not managing people properly. And when it builds on itself because the weak culture, people are entering a mismanaged environment, so they don't know how to act, and it just builds upon itself. The company's culture is, as it states below, is very heavy up top. There's a lot of executives, which speaks to the flat span of control. There's a lot of leaders and not a lot of people under them. Additionally, there's a high division of labor, meaning there's very specific categories that people work in, and they don't tend to intermingle. There's not a whole lot of group think that comes from this because departments are divided and the executives are so far apart that there's too many chiefs, not enough Indians, as the saying goes. Another thing that affects this company's structure is the high centralization, meaning that the decisions are made by these executives, but there's low formalization. There's no actual process laid out, which is a problem for Arbitech because they try to be like Google and be free thinking, but it comes back to bite them when they have no formal rules or regulations in how they operate, but they still make the decisions at the highest level and don't include others. From a conscious capitalism perspective, the current executives that are up there trying to manage these employees, these people, they don't really embody a servant leader that operates to serve the people underneath and to see the benefit of the customers and the employees themselves. That kind of speaks to a traditional sales mentality that is all about commissions and closing a deal. Um, Another part of conscious capitalism is a higher purpose to community. Both these points of no higher purpose and lacking organizational community speaks that there's no involvement or culture that brings the company together for something to work for beyond the bottom line. Um, Lastly, clarity of consciousness is of conscience is the it means that the leader has a very clear plan in mind, knows who he is, has a very big identity, and this identity translates to the culture of the company, no matter the structure, because everyone is following the lead. This isn't perpetuated in Arbitech because such a large span of control by so many executives with not enough subordinates. The cause and effect of conscious capitalism in here is when you don't have servant leaders, you have a weak followership. They don't have referent influence for the leaders, so they don't necessarily build upon the culture. And no higher purpose speaks to the weak community of the organization, which makes people not go through the natural stages of having teams and relationships inside the organization. Um, as I said before, lacking organizational community leads to higher turnover, training costs, and they have no effect beyond the work itself. There's no bigger plan. Cotter's 8-step plan is as follows for improvement in Arbitech. 1, create a sense of urgency. 2, build a guiding coalition. 3, form a strategic vision and initiatives. 4, enlist a volunteer army. 5, enable action by removing barriers. 6, generate short-term wins. 7, sustain acceleration. And 8, institute change. What this takes is having a leader with the presence of mind to be aware that there is a need for change and to know that there is a sense of urgency to make this change through gradual steps. Um, Through this improvement plan, you have something thought out. You recognize that you need to diagnose the problem, ways to attack it, and then get buy-in from the employees underneath before you take action. And if you separate the short-term wins by milestones that get you to that change, it'll be a gradual progression of success. Some subsystems that will need to be realigned for this for Cotter's 8-step plan to work is the department culture needs to be more inclusive to conscious capitalism, which is a top-down change. The executive mindset is part of that to be a servant leader. The current executives there would not embody this. The social system would be a subsystem that embraces community and involvement, and then the community identity is a big factor, big subsystem, because the opposed values have to match the enacted actions. Basically, what the company says they stand for needs to be what they actually do and show through their actions. Potential challenges will be the current executives will resist change because it will reduce the flat hierarchy, lowering the span of control. Economic adjustment of justification of realignment because it would be expensive to make such a long-term change for as opposed to the short-term profits that sales naturally go through now. And employee motivation because some employees are already part of the sales mentality and are okay hopping from job to job for where the money is. Arbitech could have avoided this dimension that was lacking by building a culture from the ground up and changing a management style that was more inclusive for a leader employee role. And the structure would have to be more formalized, even if it was an open concept like Google, less executives and leave more subordinates to have team building, team based problem solving. Thank you for watching this presentation on Arbitech's dimension to improve upon.